Now, for those of us in RTO world working under these new standards, we're almost 12 months in, we've been hearing the words self-assurance, risk-based regulation, and continuous improvement for what feels like forever now. Well, ASQA has just released its new regulatory assessment and monitoring approach. Now, we have had a few sneaky peeks at this over the last few months in various ASQA communications, but they've finally released the actual document on their website. Now, most people will be reading this as a document that explains how ASQA will conduct audits. I'm not. I'm reading this as a document that's telling providers exactly how they should be running their organizations. So in this video, I want to translate what this actually means in practice and give you 3 things that if you're not already doing these, then you need to get a move on and do it ASAP. Now, there are a couple of practical changes that really stand out. Firstly, expect to hear from ASQA more often. The document makes it very clear that monitoring activities are going to be more common. Those activities could be something as simple as a self-assessment, a phone interview, a request for information, or a targeted site visit, but not necessarily a full audit. And secondly, audits are becoming much more targeted and risk-based. Rather than trying to look at everything, ASQA's saying that it will focus on the risks that matter the most for that provider, that industry, or that particular qualification. But I actually think those changes aren't the biggest takeaway. So here's the real shift. ASQA repeatedly talks about providers taking responsibility for monitoring themselves. They talk about governance and systems and continuous improvement and evidence. In other words, they're expecting providers to know whether they're compliant before ASQA ever asks the question. And that's a very different mindset from waiting for an audit to tell you what's wrong. Please do not do that. So here are 3 things that you should already be doing, but if you're not, you should be doing them as soon as possible. So number 1, build a genuine self-assurance system. If your compliance system is basically a folder full of policies and an internal audit once a year, then that's not going to cut it. Ask yourself, how do we know our assessment is working? How do we know our trainers are delivering consistently? How do we know learner support is effective? How do we know our third parties are meeting expectations? Notice the wording. How do we know? Not, do we have a policy? Number 2, start managing risk, not paperwork. Now, the document says over and over again that ASQA's assessments will be risk-based. So providers should be asking exactly the same questions, right? Where are our biggest risks? Which qualifications keep us awake at night? Which trainers need more support? Which campuses? Which third parties? Which learner cohorts? If you're treating every qualification exactly the same, then you're probably not managing risk. You're just managing paperwork. And number 3, make your evidence smarter. Now, one thing that really stood out to me is that ASQA is saying that providing huge amounts of irrelevant evidence just slows everything down and can increase regulatory effort. Instead, they want clear, relevant evidence that demonstrates sustainable compliance. And that tells me quality of evidence is becoming much more important than quantity. Don't send 500 pages hoping they'll, find what they need, or that they'll somehow magically know what it is that you're referring to. Show them the right evidence, explain what it demonstrates, and connect it back to your systems. So for me, this document isn't really about audits. It's about where regulation is heading. The providers that are going to thrive over the next few years won't be the ones that are the best at scrambling when ASQA calls. They will be the providers who already know what's happening inside their organisation because they've built strong governance, genuine self-assurance, and a culture of continuous improvement. That's the real message in this document.